welcome to this installment of A Half Hour With. I am Stacey Wilson-Hunt, and with us today we have a couple of the creators behind Tiger King, Rebecca Chaiklin and Fisher Stevens. Welcome to both of you. Congratulations on your Emmy nominations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How did that acknowledgement feel after many months of this series taking hold of essentially the entire world?
It was exciting. It was really exciting, and we're super grateful to the Academy.
Well, obviously everyone watched it, which is always good.
Actually, more important than awards is audience. So it's good that we had the audience, but we love awards too.
They are very important. And I do want to say that Rebecca is the co-director and Fisher, you are the executive producer. And before we get into our conversation, I would love to show a clip from Tiger King. So let's roll that.
It's not every day that a zookeeper went to prison for murder for hire.
There are more captive tigers in the U.S. than there are in the wild throughout the world.
Animal people are nuts, man. They're all crazy. I'm sure y'all got a story to tell.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Joe Exotic, and this is Sarge.
He was like a mythical character living out in the middle of bumfuck Oklahoma who owned 1,200 tigers and lions and bears and shit.
Come here, love me. Matt spoken, good looking, love to party and have fun. I don't think we're done blowing shit up today.
I don't figure you are.
They have a heart and a soul and a mind. I've learned from them. But Carol Baskin keeps saying, I can't have these tigers.
If he ever had an enemy in his life, it was Carol Baskin.
Hey, all you cool cats and kittens, it's Carol at Big Cat Rescue.
Carol is the Mother Teresa of cats.
We will end the private possession of these cats.
This is my way of living, and nobody's gonna tell me any otherwise.
Carol has an army of people working for free.
She's a plain-out hypocrite. She literally does everything that I do.
So Joe says, will you go to Florida and what?
Kill that fucking lady.
What a story. And it got way bigger.
Sometimes they say that I'm the prototype for Scarface.
We're supposed to be sexy, and we're luring people in.
You may now kiss the grooms.
You're gonna have to kill me to shut me up. This is my first album, I Saw Tiger. There's 28 songs and 16 music videos.
I saw Tiger, now I understand. I saw Tiger, Tiger saw me.
Oh goodness, that song is dangerously catchy, isn't it?
So got a voice, doesn't he, Rebecca?
Yes, it almost seems like it's not coming out of his mouth. It's so good.
It actually isn't. Anyway, let's.
So Rebecca, I'd love to start with you. Tell me a little bit about the project you thought you were making, and at what point did you realize you were telling a crazy or even larger story? Because as is the case with documentary work, you set out to tell one story, things evolve, they change. What was sort of that nexus of storytelling at the beginning versus how it ended up panning out for you?
Well, Eric actually asked me, Eric is a reptile person. He loves reptiles, and he sort of told me about this crazy world in South Florida it was Breaking Bad, but they were dealing exotic reptiles instead of meth. And he was like, we should just go down on this, rec trip to see if we can even get access, because it's a really, really closed world, secretive world, and it's going to be really hard to get anybody to film with us. And so we set out on this sort of exploratory trip, and when we were at this notorious reptile dealer's house, this guy rolled in wanting to hit, and his hand was all mauled and his thumb was falling off. He had just been bitten by a venomous snake, and he wanted to get yet another venomous snake. And as he was leaving, he was like, hey, check out what I have in my van. And this was in the middle of the summer. It was probably over 100 degrees, 100% humidity. And he opened up his van, and there was a snow leopard in the back, of which there are only a few thousand left on the entire planet. Right. And so, I mean, our jaws just dropped. couldn't believe that somebody had just purchased a snow leopard in South Florida. And it's sort of at that moment, we went on this trajectory in this other direction. And initially, we thought we were going to make a piece that was sort of about these colorful characters and the efficacy of keeping big cats in captivity. And at a certain juncture, the characters, as we got to know them better and began to understand the feud that was going on between them, they really sort of took over the story, and it really became a verite story about these incredibly colorful cultures and characters.
Yes, culture is one way to put it, that's for sure. And Fisher, obviously not a lot of people know you as an actor, but you have been a very prolific producer and director over the years and in a lot of documentaries as well. Tell me what was distinct about EPing a project like this, and at what point did you board this project? Was it after a lot of this work had been done? And what guidance did you provide along the way as this incredible narrative started to unspool?
Well, I guess my involvement was kind of twofold. Originally, Eric and I had known each other, I gotta say, since I was like 19.
Oh, wow.
From nightclubs. And when I produced The Cove, Eric was a huge fan of that film. Mm-hmm. And we started hanging out again because he was a, animal person. And then I would say 7 years ago, invited me to the Turtle Conservancy and invited me to join the advisory board. And then he showed me all this footage he had of going inside of these wild animal markets, which a lot of people think the coronavirus started with a bat at a market in China. So Eric has been doing kind of undercover filming in those markets for many years. Mm. And he asked me originally to do a documentary about that. And then I saw a couple other like clips of crazy animal people. And then that's when basically I called. Rebecca and I had been actually co-directing a film at that time on Occupy Wall Street. And that's when I kind of started, Rebecca and Eric had known each other, but then I thought maybe Rebecca would be a good directing partner for Eric producing partner back then. And, like Rebecca said, I mean, before the snow leopard experience, we were kind of thinking of, I didn't know what it was going to be, but in my mind and in Eric's mind, it was much more like Rebecca said, we were making a Blackfish kind of a movie that was going to make people just, we can't keep lions and actually it was other animals in captivity. We were looking at monkeys and Rebecca and Eric stumbled on these other, specifically Joe and Carol and Mario. And at that point I was kind of working on a bunch of other things and they just kept shooting and shooting and shooting. And I kind of stepped away for a while. And then about, I would say a year and a half or 2 years, a while back, they showed me a long trailer of what they cut and asked me if I had any advice and can I, and I was desperate to get back involved because I saw it. It was like, this is unbelievable. And I had been trying to find a project to do with Chris Smith, another really prolific filmmaker, did Fire Doc and Carrie and American Movie. And so I introduced Chris to Rebecca and Eric, and then the four of us kind of went into Netflix with a trailer. This was over a year and a half ago. And so from then on, I was involved in trying to make it episodic and selling it to Netflix and kind of turning it into the series. But Rebecca, I have to say, and Eric, to their credit, like every week, I mean, the amount of work and energy that those two put into tracking down the stories, staying in a relationship. I mean, Joe was not in jail when they started.
Right.
Joe was just this great character. And what happened was just a documentarian's dream. Right? So, and it continues because, obviously Rebecca and Joe and Eric, and there's still a relationship. So it's been quite a journey, and it's wonderful how it turned out. And we had a great team of editors and great musicians doing the score, and it kind of just happened to fall into place.
I would say yes. I would say it's a series of the year on many levels. Rebecca, I would love to know, each of these people are in their own way master manipulators of the truth, of their own stories, of other people's stories. How hard was it to not let them overtake what you knew was the truth that had to be told? Did you have to call them out on lies in the moment? Were you letting them tell their story and then sort of reframing reality later on? Or was it a mix of the two along the way?
I mean, I guess in some ways it was a documentarian's dream, because all of our characters, except for Mario, I would say, had somewhat of they wanted to be on camera. They loved oversharing. And there was just no off limits. It was like, let me, from my penis piercing, penis cage, to my wardrobe, to, my most intimate moments. It was just, there was nothing off limits. And they all had these incredibly rich archives where they had been filming themselves for years. And so it was really, we wanted to let the characters speak for themselves. And I know it's hard to believe, but this is actually who these people were. Like, we weren't manipulating things. We were just filming straight verite. And it was crazy. People are like, why is that person wearing this or not wearing that? And I was like, well, they wanted to.
But do you think, in a sense, and this is what has struck a chord with me, is that part of the United States, first of all, is not covered very often by Hollywood. So the first instinct is, oh, they must have done this guy's hair or had him, give him this clothes or pierced his eyelid or whatever it was. Whereas we're just not used to seeing these characters at all. So to us, they seem fabricated out of, some script. So that's what I think is so cool, is that this is all just natural habitat.
I completely agree. It's really interesting how many people have, and even myself, I have to say, it's not my world. I knew Eric sort of like Fisher did. I had worked for him in college and nightclubs, and we had this whole sort of like nightlife connection, and we had become friends throughout that process of my being his employee when I was in college. And he took me into this world, and I was constantly like, my jaw dropping. I just couldn't believe it was true. I couldn't believe, first of all, that people could keep big cats in their backyards and their living rooms, along with a slew of other animals that belong in the wild. And but the characters were just unlike anything you'd ever seen before, it was an incredible journey. And I do think we miss a lot by only focusing on very specific, casting couch type characters for documentaries. And there's swaths of our country and culture that are really untapped and unheard. So I know this isn't like an incredibly important story, as many documentaries are, in terms of social justice, but I do think it gives a voice to a lot of people who are not heard from very often.
I agree. And also, let's not underestimate the power of seeing this very flamboyantly gay man from that part of the country owning his sexuality, touting it, celebrating it. Maybe we could say, a little too much, you could argue, but just the novelty of seeing that character, and he's comfortable with himself and he likes himself. I think for me, however you feel about what he did, I think it's pretty revolutionary. So I have a feeling for queer visibility in that part of the United States has probably been meaningful.
Absolutely. And I can't tell you how many young gay men and women, but mainly gay men, we met in the Bible Belt in rural Oklahoma, who said, this man owning his sexuality, being proud of it, and putting it out there, and in a very like macho culture, saved my life, because I was gay, and he gave me one role model that was part of my culture that allowed me to be who I was. And that was very compelling.
I agree. And Fisher, I would love to know, let's go back to March when the series premieres. We're also dealing with the surreality of a global pandemic, being home, quarantine. When did you realize that this series had taken hold not only of social media, but all of our attention. Were you getting texts from friends? Were you getting hit up in social media? Were you getting messages and you realized like, oh my God, people are nuts for this?
Yeah. It's funny because Rebecca and Eric and Chris and I were we were supposed to fly to LA, I think on March 11th or 12th for the premiere.
Wow.
And Netflix said to us, okay, look, the good news is, well, the bad news is we're probably going to cancel the premiere, but the good news is everybody's going to be home.
Right.
And they said that if everyone is home, this show could be a huge hit for us. And I didn't think about it really. I was like, okay, yeah, but okay, because obviously we didn't know what the hell was going on in the world.
Sure, that was still before.
Yeah, but it was when like you started hearing tons of talk show people, just talking about it, and the numbers. Netflix is pretty secretive, but they let Rebecca and Eric and they let us know a little bit. I couldn't believe the people from Paris, France, and Italy, and my friends that I've shot documentaries with had all started watching this thing. So it was just outrageous. But we did, Rebecca and Eric, the minute they met Joe, and they kind of did know, partially because of his open homosexuality in the rural South. And he's a macho guy, shoots guns, is not afraid to, mix it up. He was gold. And and then the whole Carol thing. So I still can't believe. People are still discovering it now. And
That's true.
It has legs, so to speak, as they say.
That's
so it's
true.
pretty exciting.
And it will continue forever because it's on Netflix. There is no limit. So I'd love to ask both of you, this story to me, for better or worse, seems consummately American. It seems like this is like a truly only in America story. It's about greed. It's about humans lording over animals for their own financial, benefits. It's about fame. It's about disguising who you are. It's about manipulating truth. And not to say these themes don't exist outside of the United States, but it feels very now. It feels very 2020. What is the moral of this story, if there is one? What is the message that you, as you've continued to think about everything that you created with this story, is there a takeaway for you? And feel free to jump in, whoever would like to answer.
I think everything you just said is very accurate. And obviously this is not, and this is not a story with a particularly happy ending.
No.
And I think that this, to me, so much of this story played out because of our obsession with social media and how to brand ourselves in the digital world as something other than what we truly are.
One of the other reasons the show was so successful is that Rebecca and Eric did not judge Joe at all, right? They kind of just let Joe be Joe.
Right.
And Joe trusted them because he got to say, like Rebecca said, tell his own story, sometimes digging his own grave, sometimes, boasting, whatever. But that they have a really, I think that they really like Joe and care. You, as documentarians, you ultimately fall in love with your subjects.
Right.
And even if they're Joe or whoever.
Well, also documentarians, all they want is honesty. That's the only thing that they're looking for. So if the person seems open to just share every fiber of who they are, then you can't ask for anything else.
Yes. Yeah. And it's not often easy to get, but in this day and age, like Rebecca says, I think because of social media, everybody's very camera savvy and much more used to being on camera.
For sure.
I made a movie about Sylvia Earle, who's 80 years old, this amazing oceanographer, and you couldn't get her to talk about anything personal. I had to get drunk. Any kind of, these characters, they just will, like Rebecca said, talk to you about their piercings, bodies.
Well, I think there's something to, these are people who've had a lot of pain in their lives. They haven't had stability. They haven't had a family unit that supported them. They have felt disenfranchised, economic hardships. So the fact that anyone would give them not only the time, but the non-judgmental environment in which to tell their stories. I mean, you could see there's just a craving for connection, which, I mean, we all have that craving, but I had a good family growing up. I don't know what it's like to feel on the margins of society. And I think that's what's so touching. You know, we can think that these folks are colorful and strange and eccentric, but I think they're all just trying to find a community. At least that's one of the other messages that is taken.
Everybody is searching, and obviously, you know, addiction plays a big part of this.
For sure, right.
Not only the addiction that Joe dealt with and the people that Joe took in, but there is an addiction to collecting animals.
Absolutely, right.
Which, you know, Eric in a way has, you know, he's saving tons of reptiles and turtles, but he loves it. But Joe, whoever the characters are, once they start, I mean, Carol's whole thing is she started collecting and getting more and more into it. And it is like a drug, collecting these animals and the power you have over these animals. And then ultimately these animals can make you wealthy. So it's a crazy circle. And getting back to what you were speaking about before, about how the greed takes over and, you know, that whole thing. And they're so beautiful.
And I would love to know, so a number of scripted projects are in the works, as they often are when stories that are this good, we feel the need to retell them in a scripted way. Are you going to be involved at all in any of those? I know Kate McKinnon's been cast as Carol Baskin in one of them, which I think fans were excited about. Do you have any sway in how those stories will be told?
We're not working on that currently. There actually some of those, as you said, Kate McKinnon, and there's another one. I think Nick Cage is doing one.
Yes.
Those had been in the works for about 6 months or 8 months before.
Oh, wow. Okay. And how has he felt knowing about the zeitgeist that essentially he started? I mean, is it strange for him to be not even able to, I guess, quote unquote, enjoy this newfound fame and to be experiencing it remotely? What is that like for him?
It's been a roller coaster. When it first came out, and I mean, he still is getting hundreds of letters a day, and he became this star, and every reporter in the world was trying to call he was still in a county prison at that time, he had just been sentenced, and he was waiting to be transferred into a federal prison, and he had access almost 24/7 to, well, not 24/7, but all day, to email and unlimited phone calls as long as he had enough money to make them. And reporters, you know, I think he actually broke the commissary. He got so many donations in the first week that Tiger King came out. And so he was over the moon. I mean, over the moon. He was just like, I can't believe my whole life, everything I've ever done this is the moment. And then he realized in like the coming weeks that he couldn't really experience it in the way, you know, he's still basically like a caged animal, as he would say. And then he was transferred into this other prison, and he was put into solitary confinement for over 2 months. And because of COVID, because of the attention he was getting. And so, and he's a very social human being. He really has hard time being alone. And he really started to go mad in the course of that. I think it was just knowing all of this was going on the outside and what he was doing. And so it's been a tough couple months.
Yeah. And it's hard to not feel for him. We know that he made bad decisions, but also he's a human who's, you know, no one would wish this on anyone. So I'm glad he has you to support him, even if it's just.
Well, I would wish prison on a few people right now.
Yeah, I can think of a couple actually.
I really would.
So in closing, we do have an audience question, which is, you know, very thematically connected to what we were just discussing. In April at a press conference, Donald Trump was asked if he would ever pardon Joe. And, you know, he seems to wield this power in ways that, you know, we don't usually understand. But is that something that could happen? Is that a realistic thing for Joe?
I have no idea. I really don't. I'm not.
Trump hadn't really even seen it. It was more of coming from his his children, I think, right?
Yes. No, he hadn't seen it at that point, but I think one of the journalists asked because why not? Of course, it was the peak Tiger King madness at that point. So,
I mean, he has an extensive legal team at this point, like very seasoned legal team, people who have come on pro bono, who are supporting him, wanting to help him. I'm sure there's also, Joe has he's worth millions of dollars just in merchandising rights at this point.
Right.
And so I'm sure there's a bunch of there's so many people involved with him. I'm sure different people have different motivations. Some I think are really genuine and want to help him and see that this is a miscarriage of justice. I'm not sure, but I do know, and they feel confident. But, he just asked me in parting words, he's like, I'll call you back later if I possibly can. But do you really think that there's any way that they're going to get me out of here? And I just don't know. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. And I don't want to misrepresent it to him.
Of course. No, of course. Well, first of all, we have to keep all these people healthy, first of all.
Yes.
Let's get over that hurdle, keep ourselves healthy. Yeah. And hopefully in a few months, there'll be some clarity, for him. And we do wish him some peace in whatever form that takes. And hopefully he's had a lot of time to think about everything that's happened. And you have painted him in a way that's fair and told his story in a fair way. So, for that, you should be congratulated and hopefully you can celebrate your achievement.
Oh, thank you. Well, I just would like to say one thing because it was so stunning to me that if you are incarcerated in this country right now, you have a 550 times greater chance of getting COVID, which is inhumane.
That is really terrible. I hope some attention is brought to this larger problem. And that is, if there's a benefit to him being there, at least he's someone of note who then people can say, hey, this guy, we understand he's serving a term, but he deserves to stay healthy. So I hope some activism is pointed in that direction.
It's a bad time to be in prison right now. It's always a bad time, but the COVID is just rampant and it's so scary. It's terrible.
It is really terrible. Let's hope that we've seen the worst of it and then the next few months bring some clarity and health. And vote. We got to remind people to vote.
Got to vote.
Everybody has to vote.
Everyone has to vote.
Then maybe some other people will be in orange jumpsuits.
And on that note, Fisher, thank you so much. Thank you, Rebecca, for joining us. I really appreciate it. I know it's difficult to schedule anything right now. We're all over the place, but we really appreciate your time and the care that you gave to this project, which I think we can all agree could have gone a number of different directions. And I think it was told in a fair way, in a respectful way. And congratulations. And thank you to our friends at Netflix and to everyone who has been watching from their offices or couches or wherever they have found